You are listening to Mining Stock Education.
So our aim is to double the resource as quickly as possible, and for that to underpin a mega uranium mine concept whereby we could be producing 4 to 5 million pounds via very simple heap leach operations, but processing in a central processing facility. So that's the strategy, and there's a number of other sort of technical advantages of this project that we think will stand out.
Thank you for tuning in to Mining Stock Education. I'm your host, Bill Powers, and in today's show, you're going to meet a new uranium sponsor of the show, and it's of the management pedigree of a former uranium sponsor from about 4 years ago, Lotus Resources. The team behind that, Matador Capital, has taken over Atomic Eagle. This is essentially an RTO onto the ASX, Australian Stock Exchange, of GoviEx Uranium. For those North American listeners, in Canada, you would recognize GoviEx as trading on the TSXV. The assets now trade in Atomic Eagle on the ASX, and here to talk about it is CEO Phil Hoskins. Phil, you're part of the Matador Capital team. Take us through the rationale. Why in Q4 of last year did you essentially do an RTO of GoviEx Uranium?
Yeah, no problem, and thanks for having me, Bill. It's a bit of a long history with the people involved in this company and the interest that they have in uranium. So Grant Davey is the founder and principal of Matador Capital. One of his technical offsiders, Keith Bowers, has worked alongside him for over a decade through various uranium ventures. It first started with Boss, was called Boss Resources, now Boss Energy. That Honeymoon uranium asset was acquired off the Russians, and Boss was created. They did the original feasibility studies there and stepped away in 2019, but it had already grown to quite a significant company, and afterwards it grew to a $2 billion company. So identified a good project early. They stepped away in 2019 to create Lotus. Matador acquired the Kayelekera uranium mine in care and maintenance off Paladin. Keith became the managing director of Lotus, as I think you're aware, and the restart studies were underway. A guy called Warren King, who's also the chief operating officer of Atomic Eagle, was also the exec responsible for the restart. And for those following uranium, it did restart midway through last year and producing uranium now. So a long history involved in uranium. And through the time at Lotus, I think Grant and Keith sort of stepped aside probably 9-12 months ago. As the companies advance and become larger, they outgrow the shared administration sort of corporate offices that we operate under here. And so Lotus did that around 12 months ago. And for a long time, Grant and Keith had their eyes on the Muntanga uranium project in Zambia that was held by GoviEx. For a long time, it was the second asset of GoviEx. But we felt that there were a number of uranium comparisons on the ASX trading at very large valuations with very similar assets, and particularly Deep Yellow and Bannerman resources as large, sort of modest grade uranium deposits in Africa. And so it was about April last year that I think the Matador group reached out to the GoviEx team. I think caught them at a good time. I think they needed additional capital. I think the market was perhaps not in favour of the development strategy, so then the RTO was thought up. Took all of sort of 6 months to manage that through last year, and came on in November last year. So that was the reasoning behind it. We feel that there's a number of comps on the ASX for African uranium, and that with a quality resource and some technical things that I'll talk about, we felt that it should be much higher value than what it was.
Before we get to the project, a little more on the corporate side, you also just listed on the OTCQB in the United States. What's the corporate rationale behind that?
Yeah, I think, as you know, the OTC is a means by which you can access North American investors that otherwise might not have an opportunity to buy the stock. We know in some of my past experience, companies I've been involved with have listed on the OTC, and you can have a mixed response. But I think that the fact that uranium is a critical mineral, the fact that the Trump administration is pushing nuclear in a big way. I think the general deglobalization of markets and economies around the world, and the race for cheap energy to underpin data centers and AI. So the US are obviously trying to keep pace or even surpass China, is going to mean that uranium and nuclear are going to be front and center for investors, and a thematic that will be long and strong in the US for time to come. So we were quite confident that the US investors already were quite favourable to the thematic, and hopefully a good opportunity for US investors to get in at the ground level with atomic sort of well before the general market becomes aware of us. So that's certainly something that in the first few months we're still trying to get the name out there, and haven't even done our first roadshow as Atomic Eagle, but we'll be looking to do that beyond some upcoming news flow and catalysts.
And your chairman is Govin Friedland, the son of Robert Friedland. And I think it was 2 weeks ago, Robert was standing behind President Trump in the Oval Office, basically talking up the mining industry. So any commentary there you could provide?
Yeah, absolutely. So Govin's done a lot of work with his father over a long period of time. Govin sent me a video that he took from that session talking to Trump, and so they're great connections to have. There's no doubt that the US are viewing uranium sourcing as a strategic imperative moving forward. We may talk about the market, and I guess recent news with the Chinese getting a foot in the door on Bannerman, and I think it's only a matter of time before the US follows suit. So it's good to have Govin there with that North American connection, and he's obviously got a lot of understanding of the assets that we hold as well.
You're in Zambia. One thing about Africa that's unique is that you get Russia going there, you get China going in there, the US is there. Any commentary you can provide from a geopolitical standpoint?
Yeah, and Grant Davey, our strategic advisor, talks about this a lot, that Africa has the advantage to be able to sell to the Chinese, sell to North America, sell to the Russians if sanctions allow it. So it doesn't really have a geopolitical side. I don't think there's any doubt that the Chinese over several decades have sought to provide funding for infrastructure in various African countries, and have used that as a leverage point to be able to secure projects and sort of favourable deals. And I think over the last few years, it's been acknowledged by the US that they've fallen behind in that regard, and it certainly looks like they're trying to pick up. So we feel that Africa is a destination that any of those groups can look to come in and secure supply, potential strategic investments when we get down the path and have grown the resource in Zambia to the size that we think underpins the right scale of development. Then we're certainly willing to entertain those strategic discussions.
So your flagship is the Muntanga project, 47 million pounds at 344 ppm. Walk us through this project. What's a little bit of the history, and where do you want to take it?
Yeah, look, I'm a couple of months into the role and still picking up some of the history myself. So I believe it might have been owned by Denison Mines some time ago, picked up by GoviEx. I think the majority of the exploration was conducted in the last uranium boom in sort of 2007, 2008. But it's probably more the recent history and current status, and our strategy is what I would like to talk about. So the 47 million pounds is sitting on mining licenses. The company has 1,126 square kilometres of tenure in southern Zambia. The resources sit across two central deposits known as Muntanga and Dibwe East. Those two deposits account for 40 of those 47 million pounds. And there's three satellite deposits as well. There was a NI 43-101 feasibility study released by GoviEx in March 2025, which, in our opinion, laid down a technical platform for a sound project at $90 a pound. It was roughly NPV equals CapEx, so it wasn't screaming, develop me right now. I think the strategy that GoviEx had was to take it down the development path. I don't think they had the funding to throw at the exploration that was certainly our strategy. So when we looked at that project, we felt that there was a lot of upside potential. So through the transaction last year, for $700,000 of drilling, we'd identified some low-hanging fruit, which was to do some drilling at Chisabuka, one of the tenements down in the southwest, and also at Muntanga East, which is adjacent to those central deposits. And we've had excellent early success. We identified those deposits. As I mentioned, they were quick wins that we thought could be quick conversion into resources. And over the next couple of weeks, I think in early March, we'll come out with the resource upgrade, which I believe will be a fantastic addition to the resources for the cost that we've incurred to create it. But that's only the beginning. Hopefully that demonstrates to investors the exploration approach and the discipline that we've got to growing that resource inventory. Our strategy is completely different to GoviEx in the fact that the feasibility study, I think, indicated 2.2 million pounds per annum over a 12-year mine life. That was just based on the measured and indicated resources of those two central deposits. We know that we can fold those other satellite deposits in as well. We know that on the ASX you can incorporate inferred resources. These additions that we're coming out with over the next couple of weeks are going to add to that. But for us, the size of the prize was in the exploration target that we released in December last year, which was between 40 and 100 million pounds. These things obviously have ranges because you still need to drill them out, but that's in addition to the 47 million pound resource. So our aim is to double the resource as quickly as possible, and for that to underpin a mega uranium mine concept whereby we could be producing 4 to 5 million pounds via very simple heap leach operations, but processing in a central processing facility. So that's the strategy. And there's a number of other sort of technical advantages of this project that we think will stand out, and I guess were identified by Grant and Keith as being favourable to this project as well.
So you were capitalized in Q4 of last year with 20 million Australian dollars, and will that treasury take you? How far will that take you through the whole exploration program?
Absolutely. So I'd say by the end of this calendar year, we'll have just short of half of that. And that's with the most aggressive exploration program this project has seen in almost 20 years. So I think we'll, and there'll be an announcement during March. The wet season is subsiding now, and during March, we're going to be kicking off that exploration program. I think it'll be close to 50,000 metres getting drilled. So we're talking very near surface, targeting low strip, bulk tonnage mineralisation. So the exploration potential and the program for this upcoming year will focus on Chisabuka to begin with. So whatever doesn't get folded into resources in the next upgrade will be continue to be infilled and added to the resource. Nearby, there's two targets called Namakande, and up near Muntanga, there's a big target called Muntanga North. Muntanga North's 80 square kilometres, and there's 10 discrete targets within it. And all of these targets aren't greenfields. You've got multi-layers of data. You've got uranium in soils. You've got geophysics pointing to the radioactive anomalies there. So this is a great killing ground to be able to add to the resource inventory that we already have. So, as you mentioned, well-funded to do it. But we think fantastic growth and news flow for the company through 2026 into a favourable market for the commodity.
Zambia is known for copper mining. Are there other uranium mines in Zambia?
There's no uranium mine. We are the most advanced uranium sort of developer in the country, and that's recognised as such by the ministry. I was there in December meeting the minister for the first time, and he's very supportive of what we're doing. We are looking to pick up additional ground around our existing tenement package and actually joining together. There's a bit of a gap there at the moment as well. So they're very supportive. They want to see diversification outside of copper. They are the 7th largest copper producer in the world. And so they do understand mining. It's a very mining-friendly jurisdiction, but they want to see that diversification outside copper. They also want to see diversification geographically. The copper belt is up in the north and we're down in the south. And so there's a number of sort of government tailwinds to see the support for our project moving forward. And within that African context, Zambia, from a political standpoint, is fantastic. It's ranks third on the Fraser Institute for investment attractiveness. So a lot of things going right in Zambia, and the infrastructure is fantastic. I'd previously spent 10 years in Tanzania as managing director of a graphite company there, and it's been fantastic to visit Lusaka, the capital of Zambia, and understand how advanced the country is, and especially how developed the mines ministry is in their understanding of the mining industry.
And do you mean the third ranked on the Fraser Institute in Africa? Is that what you meant by that? Or
sorry, yes, third in Africa. Yep.
Okay. Yep. Because I know Nevada, Arizona are usually towards the top. What's before it? Is it Botswana and Namibia? Are those the two that rank before it?
Yeah, I believe Namibia might be one and Botswana might be two. So
okay. And where does Malawi rank? Lotus's resources there.
I'm not sure where Malawi rates. Yeah, there's over 50 countries in Africa, so.
Okay. So you're in the top 6% in Africa in terms of, all right. And are there ports nearby for offtake of your potential products?
The export route, so Zambia is in the center of southern Africa, and the export route would be through Namibia by road, through Walvis Bay, which is a known uranium export port, of course, and so no additional permitting required there. But it's around 500 kilometres by road. I think it only adds $1.46 per pound of uranium. So the logistics path is not a path that's overly expensive for us. We are transporting a high value product, and I think the roads, the majority of the way to site, are sealed. I think there's, within the capital cost of the feasibility study, there's, I think, the final 20 kilometres requiring to be built.
So GoviEx, who you did an RTO of, they had another asset, an even larger, higher grade asset. Share with listeners the history of that and your relationship to that asset now that the other asset of GoviEx is within your company.
Yeah, for sure. So, as you picked up, so GoviEx, for a long period of time, their primary asset was the Matador uranium project in Niger. And they'd spent, I think, $170 million if you include the acquisition costs, on the acquisition, exploration, and development of that asset. Just to put it in context, in terms of the quality of the resource, you've got a 120 million pound resource with an average grade over 1,300 ppm. To put that in context, that's 2.5 times the size of our Zambian resource, and it's 3 to 4 times the grade. So no doubt a world-class asset. But a couple of years ago, it was expropriated by the Niger government, and the GoviEx at the time commenced an international arbitration process. Around 14 months ago, the Niger government approached GoviEx to put that on hold, to seek to negotiate being able to hand the asset back to the company. I think GoviEx was quite sort of tied up with the transaction through last year, but post my commencement, I did meet with the mines minister for Niger around 5 weeks ago in Saudi Arabia. Grant Davey, our strategic advisor, has been in Niger to meet with the minister and a whole bunch of ministry officials over the last week or so, and we're becoming increasingly confident about trying to get an outcome there that will benefit shareholders. I think we feel incredibly undervalued on the back of our Zambian asset. Getting an outcome on Niger is option value at the moment, but we feel it is incredible option value given the scale and quality of that project.
Phil, could you recap the catalysts that are ahead, let's say the next 3 to 6 months for the company?
Yeah, so I think the very near-term catalysts next week will be re-releasing the feasibility study for Muntanga. On the ASX, you need to have an independent engineering review before you can release studies done by prior owners, and so that will be coming out next week. early March, we'll be coming out with the resource upgrade. And then in later March, we'll explain or provide an announcement about the upcoming exploration program and what the targets look like through the year. I think what everyone can look out for through the year is new discoveries of uranium mineralization, adding to the resources in a large way, while we as a new management team are also looking at ways that we can optimize and enhance the previous feasibility study. And I will just add on some of the technical upsides or technical advantages of Muntanga as well, which I haven't touched on, but it is a heap leach operation. The recoveries are plus 90% in pretty quick time. The acid consumption is incredibly low, averaging around 20 kilograms of acid per ton. And that was one of the things that really attracted Grant and Keith to the project. I think Kayla Lotus might be 45 to 50 kilograms per ton. So a big driver of operating costs. And so there's a number of technical things going in our way, but we're not, as I mentioned, going down the development path. It will be about exploration and growth in resources through this year. And I guess at the same time, we've got environment and social impact assessments and relocation action plans that were previously submitted that we also expect will get approved in the first half of this year. So plenty happening. Don't need cash. And I think the other thing is getting out and promoting this story where we're not on the radar of anyone yet. And I'm very confident once we are, we'll be trading much closer to the Deep Yellow and Bannerman EV to resource pound than where we are at the moment.
Atomic Eagle is a new show sponsor. We'll be covering their progress over the coming months. Ticker symbol on the ASX is AEU, and on the OTCQB for United States listeners, you can find it under the ticker AEUXF. Thank you for this overview, Phil, and I look forward to following up with you as you progress.
Thanks very much, Bill.